Hi and welcome to my video tutorial. It's about how I made this menu in Cryengine3. As you see, all the texts are original, like in the original menu. And yeah, when I click you hear the sounds of the normal buttons of the menu sliding. And I just wanna say this is my very first video tutorial, so don't be too harsh criticizing it, and English is not my native language. Yeah, of course you can load a level. I just forgot one Flowgraph, so the menu won't disappear. Here, a very basic level, and you see the menu stays open. I can just press escape, resume, and then press the original HUD. Didn't mod now. And you can exit game. These are not yet captioned. And yeah, you can make menus like that and way better ones. But at first I'm gonna explain the UI emulator, what it is and so on. So the UI emulator, I placed mine right there, so that's pretty cool. It slides down. You can find it under View, Open View Panel, and UI emulator, and opening it will result in something like this. The UI emulator is for debugging menus or just testing all the features. And yeah, here you can, for example, open the main menu, see just the background. Then if you want to add some buttons, this is only for viewing purposes, this will not be saved. Just add button, double click. Here under functions there are events, variables, arrays and movie clips too, but I won't explain those, since if you understood functions they're pretty self-explanatory. So add button. Instance ID is, you don't need that. Caption button. Tooltip, you don't need a tooltip. And the ID, you don't see the ID, but it will be important soon, since this is the value the button returns when it's clicked. So call, and there's a button. Down here you see DFG as soon as I hover over it, and nothing happens when I go on that button and when I click on it, since there are no actions assigned to this, and you can't do actions assigned to buttons in the UI emulator. You can just say, okay, I wanna build my menu in-game via Flowgraph using the add button function. Then I'm gonna add a slider which is captioned whatever min and max are, I think, the minimum and maximum value. Go to 1 to 10 in steps of 1. The value will be 5, the default value. And the ID is pretty useless here in the UI emulator. So you see, whatever doesn't do what I thought it would do, but yeah, kinda works. So, if you understood that the UI emulator is just for, yeah, emulating the AI UI, you can, for example, just open my menu called test menu. It's just fading in. The back button is visible, but you can make that invisible, or just say main menu. We don't need that. This is for test menu. Just add a button with that caption. ID tooltips, I didn't enable tooltips here, but the functions are the very same as in the other one. And yeah, here it is. Of course, you can set up screen before that. This will change that caption, make that invisible, set that line to be aligned there. So show line, yes. 1, this can be 1, 0, or you can write the Boolean values true or false. Yeah, just use 1 as true. So maximum buttons is 10. Then X position, let's say minus 700 pixels, since it's calculating from the middle. So 0 will be right here, and minus goes to there. Button Y pause is the Y position. I don't really need that, since you can just type 0, and normally in the default UI actions it is 0. So just call, and all the buttons disappeared. This is because I set it up like that. The caption is right here. Here should be the logo sometime, and then you can call some buttons. And down here, this is the console. So if you use the trace command in Flash, if you're familiar with ActionScript 2 or 3, you will know the trace. Then you know that this is useful for debugging, since these are the instance names in this example. The instance names, the buttons, are being placed. Okay, the FPS are incredibly high or not calculatable, whatever. Yeah. Now, how can you actually change this? Just take a look at the Flowgraph editor. You can find it under View, open View panel, Flowgraph. Open up UI actions. You don't have to have opened a level for all those things. And here are some HUD flow graphs. And to, for example, add a button in the main when the game starts, you go to main. This is the very first page, and you see there is test menu, since that's my menu, but normally there will be the basic main menu. I just replaced main menu with test menu in the XML files, since all flow graphs are XML files. And yeah, here the setup screen function is executed. Show line 1 Okay, true. The line will be shown. Is a maximum of 10 buttons. The X position is minus 500, so yeah, that direction. Button Y pause is 0 in the middle, and the button offset is 40 pixels, I think. Then here you add a separator. This is the line you'll see, and I didn't add that function to my menu yet, since I won't use it in the final game, so I don't want to put too much work in that. And the caption is at UI game. So where is at UI game, and why does it show on like the first button not at UI single player TT? No, that's the tooltip at UI single player, but it just shows single player. For that you go to your Cryengine folder, to the game folder, then open up the localized folder and English.pack. That's just one thing. Open up .pack files in 7-zip or WinRAR, then extract that special file, text UI menus, open it up, but not in something like Dreamweaver. Now it's gonna start Dreamweaver, but you'll see you will not be able to read very much, since this looks like that. Not too cool, right? Okay, then just open it with, for example, LibreOffice Calc. You can use OpenOffice Calc, which is basically the same, or Excel or whatever. And there it just opens the file. Hopefully it's not corrupted or something like that. And here you see, okay, there is the add selects just the key, otherwise the string itself would be printed out. UI underscore exit to main TT will in the, so this is the tooltip for the button exit, which directs back to the main menu, and this will have the caption exit game to main menu, and here it's translated. You can of course do that for multiple languages, like here. English2.pack is something I made, since I can't rename or delete or something English.package, since it's being used by the Cryengine right now. So just pack that thing back into the .package file, or simply make a second English file, put it in there, and then swap the names by renaming firstly that and then that to English.pack, since then you will have the original language files, etc. left without having to download them again. Okay, then right here, that's the localized thing. So it will go to the key at UI single player, and for the tooltip to TT. Okay, here, setup screen. then it will add a separator which has the caption at UI game. Then the add button function. This is single player, and then here it gets the platform. So if you are on PC, it's adding the button multiplayer. Otherwise, it's going in here, and if it's adding the button multiplayer, you go in here, and the logic.any will make any of those two calls call the add separator again, this time with add UI settings caption, then another button, another time the switch. Otherwise, on console you of course don't need graphic settings. Then add button again, and add quit button, which is essentially the same. Then here this does what? Yeah, here this handles the exit button as it's captioned here. If the so this is the on button event. So where are the events and how can you see they are there? Of course they are in Flowgraph under UI events, and then your menu, main menu, or in my case test menu, on button or on level button, on sound, on text field change, on control change, and on confirm. And this here switches by the ID, so only if the ID of the clicked button is IDD underscore exit, only then it will start that control thing, which just executes the UI action confirmation, which basically just opens the confirmation thing. Was soll denn das? Toll, das muss ich jetzt alles raus. And yeah, just prints out yes, no as args arguments, since this is the only way to pass data to an UI action. So you go to common, confirmation. This here has arguments, args, which is an array here, and the values will be input to the show confirmation thing. Nothing too difficult if you understood what I said so far. Okay, then if you want another menu to open up, but that main menu, you just need to delete all those things, all those flow nodes, and then just add node UI and functions, and yeah, in my case test menu, setup screen, which has exactly that name since it is that thing. So back to where those functions are defined. You just go to libs, or no, the original files are under game data, libs, UI elements, and there those four basic HUD and menu things are there. A video player, the main menu, and something to tag entities with some caption. Yeah, and just dropping that into libs UI elements and your name.xml, in my case test menu. Test menu exactly looks like the main menu one, since I used that one and just renamed some things. Okay, of course you need to change the name. This is the name that will be shown right. Wait a second. Right here, and which you'll be using in Flowgraph, of course. Then here is the path to the SWF. You of course can use the GFX converter, but this is way faster way to do that. Just put in the file to the SWF, and this one has to be put right in here. So under game libs UI testmenu.swf, is looking for it in that folder. Then here's some constraints. It will be aligned in the center. It will be scaled when the display is scaled, and yeah, some basic things. Then there are some functions. For example, the function name enableFX, which in the original file is called enableParticles, but since I won't use any particles, I just renamed it to enableEffects. And this function will trigger the showEffects function in the Flash file. So just take a look at the Flash file. It will take some time to load. Okay, just open up testmenu.fla in my case, and you'll see nothing. I placed most of my action script here, since I normally write action scripts quite a mess. Oh, okay. Find out what F9 does with Camtasia. It just stops it. So just open up the actions panel. It's right here. And let's take a look at, for example, the setup screen function. Or no, something simpler. The add button. This has a description, adds a simple button to the menu, okay, and this triggers the function add button simple with two parameters, caption, tooltip, and ID. So add button simple is right here. It has three parameters, caption, tooltip, and ID. And yeah, here the position of the buttons are calculated since I'm dynamically attaching the buttons using the attach movie function. And yeah, this is pretty basic stuff if you understand it, and I will not explain every single line now, but I set the ID of this button, which is just shorter for underscore root and here button count. This is the instance name. Yeah, where is that ID defined? Just go to basic button, take that away, and you see here just some basic animation. It will jump to over and play if the mouse gets over it, and if the mouse gets out, it will jump to out and play, and then it will jump to over again and play if it's triggered again. Okay, so you see there is BG in that. This is not quite useful. And here AS. So what is here? These are just the variables ID, type and tooltip defined. Tooltip is currently not being used, and type isn't too, since I thought it was a good idea to make a difference between normal buttons, level buttons, quit buttons, etc. But you don't need that. You simply store the ID. You can store the ID in an array too, or whatever. Then the text is being in BG, which is the background, since I animated that separately. And here Aufschrift, which means caption in German, and yeah. So back here under actions, just pin that. You can see add button simple adds a button, sets the ID to the past ID, and this button.bg, which is the movie clip inside it, dot Aufschrift dot text equals caption, so it's just assigned to the dynamical text field inside. And then I'm setting some functions. So on release, the following function will be executed. It sets the variable args, which is an array, then pushes the ID of the very button that is triggered into the array, and then executes fs command on simple button args. So fs command is basically a function to pass variables and events from Flash to the Cryengine. And here on simple button, where is that defined? Of course, here in the XML, but not under functions, since functions is the stuff that the Cryengine says to Flash, and Flash executes them. But what Flash returns is just the events. So here fs command equals on simple button. So this returns the simple button. There is no description, since you don't need one, and there is only one parameter, which name is ID. So the description, this is just the ID of the button that has been clicked, and if you click that button, the fs command will be executed and args will be passed. So much for this. But how to handle those arguments, etc. in Flash, in Cryengine, excuse me. Just don't go to the UI emulator like I did, but open up the Flowgraph. So you see under UI actions, example pages main, this here I mentioned earlier. This is the on button, since it's called on button in the engine, and the fs command is only on simple button. This returns, as you know, the ID as argument, and this filters the input by the ID, which in this case must be IDD underscore exit, and only then it will trigger the event, like here an UI action. And yeah, since there are default events defined, let's just take a look at those. Here, default events, and yeah, when a button is clicked where the ID is something, then the ID is passed to that node. And what does that node? Right, it executes an UI action. So once a button is clicked, it starts that node, and the ID will be the UI action executed. So just look back to main. If we click the single player button, it has the ID mm single player. So let's just go to single player, and we see this is the very function which is executed after that. So the ID is given back, single player, and Flowgraph tells the Cryengine to execute single player, which sets up a new screen. So setup screen has to clear everything. So the back button will have an alpha of 0. The spinner, which is for loading purposes, has a alpha of 0. The caption of this as well. And I'm gonna remove all the buttons via remove movie clip, reset the objects array, which I made just to store the objects to be sure to have everything where I need it to be, and the button count, which just counts how many buttons there are, is 0, 2. Separator count is 0, 2, which is the count of the separators, which I haven't implemented yet. And yeah, the caption text equals caption, and the variables which position the buttons right here are redefined. And this line is of course either has an alpha of 0 or of 100. So much for this. I hope this tutorial was somehow useful. I hope you could understand what I said, since I'm not sure what I said right now. So yeah, just post it in the comments, and hopefully we will see again or hear again, whatever. Goodbye.